My mother was 18 years old when she had me. She went to college for a year, then she stopped because I was very sick when I was born. She then married my father when she was 21. My brother was born a few months after my parents got married. She wanted to go back to school, but my father told her that she is a mother now and she has to stay home taking care of the children. She told her mother that she wanted to go back to school, but her mother said that it is too late now. So my mother did what she was told and took care of my brother and I. When my mother was a little girl, she grew up in Barceloneta, Puerto Rico, and her grandmother and grandfather raised her. My mother's grandmother suffered from depression because 3 of her children and a grandchild were killed. Her grandmother would cry day and night and wouldn't get up from her bed. But she eventually found happiness in life and was able to raise my mother. My mother said that life in Puerto Rico was a lot of fun and it was beautiful. Puerto Rico had the perfect weather. She remembers waking up at 5 in the morning to the sound of the rooster and taking cold showers to get ready for school. All of the kids at her neighborhood would take the bus and be so excited to go to school. My grandmother had my mother when she was 15 years old and would always be working or going to school. My mother would look up to her mother because she worked so hard. My grandmother suffered with being bipolar. My mother would remember my grandmother being happy for one moment and suddenly wanting to die. My grandmother suffered a lot, but she never gave up. She eventually got help and got medication for the mental illness. My grandfather left my grandmother when she was 17. So my mother only had 4 of her uncles. 3 of them died before she was a teenager. The only male figure she had in her life was her grandfather. Even though he wasn't emotionally available because he was an alcoholic, she admired him. He protected her, walked her to school, worked hard to have food on the table, and would be so happy if my mother cooked for him. The biggest struggle that my mom had to face, besides her grandmother suffering from depression and her mother being bipolar, was her going through her own depression, insecurities, and no support. When my mother was 14 years old, she had some problems at school. Kids would bully her and she didn't know how to cope with the issue, so she decided to take 60 pills to stay in a deep sleep, not knowing that she could have died. She almost died from an overdose. Thank goodness she survived, but she had to pay the consequences. She lost her memory, woke up not knowing who her mother, grandmother, or friends were. The doctors also said that my mother ended up with a cognitive deficit that caused her to have a learning disability. She moved to White Plains, New York after what happened. She had to start over. She had to relearn a lot of things. She learned new skills to memorize information, and she never gave up. When my mother was a little girl, her grandmother would make the decisions, clean, take care of my mother, while her grandfather would work and bring the money. Now, things are a little different. My mother wanted to work and be independent, so she divorced my father and was able to get to know herself and learned how to be independent. She was able to recover from her learning disability and learned how to handle it. She was able to find a great job as a ramp controller at the Westchester County Airport. In this position, she has to remember a lot of information and has to be able to give that information to her supervisors and managers to find solutions to any aircraft problem. Something that my mom would tell me is to stay in school. She always believed in getting a good education. My mother's life models for me by showing me that the struggles make you stronger. What I need to do to be a strong young woman is to always believe in myself and don't pay attention to what other people have to say and just keep following my dreams. Some mistakes that I will avoid making is getting pregnant at an early age, dropping out of school, and getting married at an early age as well. I think there's something about American culture that makes life more fulfilling or easy to start over. In America, there are people that are willing to help, and there are so many more opportunities.